My Legal Club provides full legal support when you require it. Enjoy savings and rewards all year round when you don't. You do not need to be a member of My Legal Club to benefit from free legal advice from our highly recommended specialist solicitors. When you or a loved one requires legal advice and a solicitor, we can help you in every area of law. We also offer a unique alternative. Sign up to our free trial and you will receive up to 25% off legal fees, 15% off legal documents, £20 restaurant vouchers for leading UK restaurants, savings and rewards with leading UK brands, a free online will, free dash cam and much, much more. As an example of how we help our members, they have saved on average over £500 plus by using My Legal Club for personal injury claims compared to many solicitors who deduct 25% of your compensation. If you or a loved one needs legal support, contact us at mylegalclub.co.uk for free consultations and no obligation quotes with highly recommended solicitors. Sign up to our free trial to receive all the free discounts and our membership benefits. Welcome to the MLC Show in association with the Business Services Club. I am Sean Rogers, your host. I'm delighted to be joined by George Cunningham, business coach and principal NLP trainer. We are going to talk to you today about time management and really mastering your time, trying to squeeze out of that time what really matters. George, hello.
Hello.
Can you give us a bit of background on your business life, your corporate life, and obviously the principal NLP trainer role?
Yeah, sure. My business and corporate life, I spent a lot of time in sales in firstly the agricultural industry and then the pharmaceutical industry, and then moved from sales into head office roles. And I was CRM manager for Bayer UK, which is Customer Relationship Management Systems Manager. And that was a fantastic role, but really full on. And that was actually where I first came across NLP. And I began utilising a few of the ideas and the communication suggestions from NLP in my communications with the field force, and found it tremendously useful. It just made such a difference to the way that we communicated. That sparked me interest, and I took it further and further and became an NLP trainer back in 2006. And we've been delivering NLP trainings in Liverpool and around the UK ever since.
Fantastic. I know myself, time management, it's probably one of the most important things for everybody. On social media, on videos, on podcasts, there's a lot of people that talk about their successes. It might be weight loss, it might be business success, it might be whatever it be. I don't think there's enough people who say, this is where I struggled and I found things difficult, hence me putting in the right strategies. I wasn't born with the ability to be amazing at business, or to be able to suddenly lose a load of weight and keep it off, or to eat dead healthy. Could you give us some examples where in your personal or your business life you struggled with time management?
Oh, crikey, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was, as I say, seconded into office in 1998, we had a very, very young family. In fact, we had our first was just over 1 year old, and I was working away from home. So that was okay in a way, in that...
You didn't have to do all the night feeds.
I didn't have to do all the night feeds, and I could put all the hours in that were necessary because it was a very, very big project. But as time went on, I realised that actually I was putting the work ahead of the family, and did that role for 3 years. Loved the role, but it wasn't, the work-life balance just was not there. And in essence, what I began doing was realising that I was putting too much time into the work and not spending any time on myself or what was really valuable to me, to my family. So to get the balance right, I looked at ways of adjusting my working week, adjusting the way that I worked, so that I could be more efficient in the office, And then when I was at home at the weekends with the children and my wife, and then we were full on there as well. So, you know, it's really important that we do recognise that balance and actually question ourselves and say to ourselves, what is most valuable for us? Because here I am, 20 years down the line, I'm no longer working at that company. I mean, you could cut me through here and it would still say Bayer all the way through. But I'm no longer working with Bayer, but I'm working for myself. And of course, the most important thing is that I'm still there with the family's still around us, and we've raised 3 fantastic adults.
Yeah, I think everyone can probably sympathise with it. I mean, I think the pressures that we all put ourselves under nowadays are phenomenal, and certainly myself, you know I struggled with it. You know, subconsciously, you want to be a super parent, you want to eat healthy, you want to work out, you want to be a fantastic partner, you want to have the perfect career, you want to earn gazillions and millions and billions, you want to have the perfect finances, you want a beautiful house, and then you want a bigger house, and then you want better holidays, and you want to see your friends, and you want to have your hobbies, and then you need to sleep.
Yeah.
And you put all that in place, and it's very rare that all of them things are going well. So I know that I struggle with that massively. You know, for the benefit of the listeners, you know, I engage George on a personal basis. I've really enjoyed working with George over the years, and he's really helped me massively. Would you be able to take us through some of the examples I've just given there in terms of how can people put together a plan and a strategy? What should that plan or strategy be?
I think the most important thing is to take stock of where you are at the moment and have a long-term vision. So perfect now, we're in 2020, we've just started the decade, and some people, in my experience, some people don't have any plans whatsoever for the year ahead or the month ahead even. I think it's really important for a balanced life actually to have a vision for 2030. Where do you want to be 10 years from now? What do you want to be actually achieving? What do you want to be doing? What is going to be most important for you at that point? Because if you've got young kids, we only borrow children. We borrow them for maybe 18, 20 years. That's all we have with them. And then they go off and they become adults themselves. They're still around, hopefully, but you know, we only have a few years with them. So I think it's really important to get the balance right and to work out what is important for yourself. So to think about the personal life, you know, where would you want to be 10 years from now? That's 2030 with the personal life. Where do you want to be in terms of the career 10 years from now, or the business, whatever it happens to be? What are those medium to long-term goals? And the great thing about that is that it gives you somewhere to focus on. It gives you somewhere that you know you're on a direction towards. And I think that's really important. So it's really key to have that 2030 vision. That's the big goal, should we say. Then we need to do a reality check. Where are we now in relationship to that goal? You know, are we close to it? Are we miles away from it? Where is the balance right? Where are we out of balance? There's all sorts of different ways of looking at that. We can do the wheel of life thing. We've been through and looked at that, various aspects of our life, and worked out where we want to be, where we're not, and how we can adjust that so we can focus our attention where it needs to be. Once we've understood the reality, we need to then think about the obstacle analysis. What is in the way of getting us towards that goal, of actually achieving that big vision? When we look at that obstacle analysis, you know, it may be, you know, it could be around the career, it could be looking at the reach into the marketplace, for example, of a fledgling business. How are you going to reach further into the market? And maybe this is what we're doing here. It could be any other things. It could be, you know, money to invest in the business or whatever. But once we understand the obstacle analysis, we can then work out and identify the very next steps that we can take that will take us towards that goal. So these are the very short-term things that we can do. We've got the big long-term vision, 2030 vision. We've got the next steps that we can take in the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months that will take us towards that. And I think that's key to success in all areas of our lives, basically.
That certainly changed my life and the way I do things, not just in my personal life, but certainly in my business life. And in terms of, there'll be people listening to this now, whether you're a business administrator, whether you're a business operator, whether you're a business owner, whether it's just for your own personal life. I was just on automatic pilot. And the irony with something like this is, if I'm listening to this cold, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you're doing a show on time management, and what you're saying is I need to spend more time that I haven't got on doing a plan and a strategy when I haven't got the time already. No way am I doing that. What I found is that by writing down your key goals, not just long term, but actually in the short term, then you've got that immediate focus, and then as much as people hate a to-do list, so to speak, you then can start planning. So that I think what I was doing was getting up in the mornings on automatic pilot, and I was just firefighting through the day of whatever the needs of work in the main was, whatever the needs of my family and friends were. And I was probably starting the day at 6 out of 10, and life was beating me down to 1. So one of the key things that changed for me was finding a point in time was probably Sunday evenings for me, where I can go, right, okay, what are my actual key goals, like you've just said there, long term, and where does that actually fit in the next week or two? As simple as that. And as an example, it might be, right, okay, my main goal, what are the needs of the kids? How can I be? And I'm almost embarrassed to say this, that you have to lock these things in, but I found that if I don't lock them in and properly focus on them, I don't do a lot of these things naturally. Some people may do, but for me, a lot of it just does not come naturally. So as an example, I would write down, be a great dad and try and meet the needs of my kids. How am I going to eat as healthy as I can to make sure that I've got the energy and hopefully live as long as I can for their benefit as much as my own. Working out, both for the physical and mental benefits of that. And then what do I need to do in the mornings to make sure that I'm starting the day at 10 out of 10? So if life beats me down by 4 or 5 points, I'm at a 6 or a 5, or I'm not even running to a minus like I once did. And then I would look at my weekly diary and lock in the appointments, the things that can't be moved. And then go, okay, around those things that can't be moved,
what can I fit in?
What do I do that meets all of them goals and needs? And I found that way that when you look back on it a week later, you can go, right, as an example, people listening to this might go, right, okay, well, I want to have a passionate relationship with my partner. I want to eat healthy. I want to work out. I want to be a great parent. And, career-wise, as an example, my long-term goal is I want to learn new skills. I want to get promoted. I want to do X, Y, and Z. But actually in this week, what are the things that move you along? What are the bricks in the wall that move you along nearer that goal? And I think if you lock them things in, and then I have that sort of diary, if you like, Monday to Friday, it is funny the first time you do it, because you are like, this is taking me forever.
But the thing is,
and it's supposed to be a time management and goals tool, because it's not just time management. I'm not trying to say you free up time. I'm trying to say that you squeeze out of that time what really matters.
And there's that age-old adage: if you want something done, you ask a busy man. Or woman, actually, as the case may be, it's probably more appropriate. But that, I think, is a key thing there. We can find the time to do the things that we really want to do. It's actually recognising that some of the things that we really want to do are probably not worth doing. We're changing our focus to something that actually isn't really that appropriate. And I think that whole idea about spending some time on planning and strategically looking at what we're doing, we can find time to do that. If you don't find time to do that, then you bumble along, you end up getting overwhelmed, and you just need to make sure that you've got really great life insurance. Because you're not working for yourself, you're working for your life insurance to pay for the kids when you die. And that is in essence what it comes down to. And you've really got to stop, take stock for a minute and say, what are the things that are really valuable to me? If I really want to be here for the kids, I've got to start planning, I've got to start taking stock and working out what is the most important thing to do.
I know that one of the biggest problems I have in my life actually is that I like to complete things. So one of the biggest problems is when you've got them plates to spin, when you can't get it done, it's understanding for me that you can chip away at that and lay the bricks, and that's what you have to do day by day, week by week. The only thing I can think of is when my house is dead messy as an example, and I've got to tidy the whole thing. It feels like Mount Everest.
We've just had Christmas.
Oh wow, wow. And it's little and often, and if you lay the bricks brick by brick, you'll end up with a fantastic wall. Easier said than done. But that's why you're here, to make it a little bit
easier to do. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think we all have the desire to complete and finish things.
No pressure, by the way, George.
Absolutely. No, we all have a desire to complete and finish things, and that does or can skew our focus at work. Because if we look at the tasks we've got available or the things that we need to do in the day, the week, the month ahead, we look at the tasks and people will often choose the easiest to complete because it gives us a bit of gratification. You know, it gives a
clearing emails.
Absolutely, clearing emails, dealing with the junk or whatever. So if we can do those little things, that makes us feel good. But that actually isn't necessarily where the biggest shift occurs. That isn't where we get the biggest gains. And I think it's really important taking stock of what is the most important thing to do. Now, we've spoken before about Stephen Covey and his 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And I think one of the things that I always recommend to clients is to look at the next steps they've got in terms of their goals, to look at the week ahead, to look at the day ahead, to look at all the tasks they need to complete and to categorise them. And we categorise them in terms of how important are they, either for us or for the business, and how urgent are they. And some things are really important and really urgent for us, and they're the things that, have to be done. But actually that isn't necessarily where we want to be spending most of our time. The really important stuff is the stuff that is very important but non-urgent. This is where we're working on the business rather than in the business. The A quadrant, urgent and important, is working in the business. That's stuff that needs to be done. The less urgent stuff, the really important stuff, this is your B quadrant. This is the planning, the strategic thinking, the long-term planning that we need to do, or the long-term things that we need to do within the business. This is where, if we spend our time on that, life becomes a lot easier. If we leave those things to one side and we focus our attention elsewhere, these will become urgent. They're still important, but they're going to become urgent. And then, of course, we have the things that are not important to us, but actually are really urgent for somebody else. So, for example, if you're the only person in the office that can change the toner on the laser printer or whatever, and it's run out of toner, and somebody comes up and says, Sean, how the hell do you change this toner? And you know how to do it. Not important for you. It is for somebody else, and it's really urgent for somebody else. This is a C task. So it's urgent but not important. So these are the distractions. We get sort of dragged off to do something else. And then we do have the D quadrant, which is the distractions. These are the likes of, dare I say it, because we're doing a podcast and here, this is your YouTube videos and your podcasts, I'm afraid. Sometimes they are in the D quadrant. Although they can be important to actually spend some time and listen to those. So these are the distractions, the YouTube cat videos and stuff like that. What are you thinking? If you're looking at them at work, what are you thinking? So those are the things that we need not be focusing our attention on at all. But we need to, I suppose, really look at some simple strategies that we can use on a day-to-day basis. Now, we all receive emails, and we talked earlier on about emails. And one of our clients many years ago, he was telling us he received something like 2,000 emails a day, every single day. He works at one of the local universities.
He's competing with me there.
And he's Absolutely. When he said about tooth, I was like, "Are you joking?" He's like, "No. I'm the student liaison officer," he said, "and I just get tons of emails every single day." He says, "At the end of the day, I've got maybe 7 or 8 emails in the inbox." I was blown away. I thought, "How do you do that?" And he just said, quite simple. He says, "I use the 3 Ds, which is delete, delegate, and do." He says, "Most of the emails I get are purely for, oh, this is just to let you know, purely for interest. I don't need to know. Delete." Some of them are requests for information, so it's, it's not stuff that he can do. He has to pass it over to somebody else, so it's delegate. Get really used to delegating. If you've got a team around you, get used to delegating and delegate as much as you can. And thank them for doing it. Always a good thing. Then, of course, there comes down to the things that we have to do. We're the only people that can do it, so we're responsible for doing it. And those are the do's. And out of his 2,000 emails a day, there was maybe 20, 30 that he would have to actually action and do anything about. I was just blown away by the quantity of work coming in.
Yeah, the problem that I had was I was spending my time in Quadrant A, Quadrant C, in sort of my work life. And the problem is, if you don't spend enough time in Quadrant B, so without talking in quadrants and making this a quadrant show, I think actually that it's hard by taking a step back, looking at your goals, like we talked about in part 1 of the first show. If you can prepare your business in such a way that the onboarding, that the training, that the business culture, and even if you're a business operator, you play a big role in this in terms of helping create your own culture and contributing to this, in that you then have less of Quadrant C. You have less of people coming to you needing that help and support. And if you do, the chances are that it's less panicked. It's less last minute. And I think the problem then is I found that when I got into my personal life, when work finished or whatever times they were, I just wanted to be in Quadrant D. And that's not healthy. And it's weird saying this because we all know it, but I genuinely have to focus on this now because my life went wrong, if you like, in so many ways. You go to restaurants and you'll see families and everyone's on the phone. I can imagine that people come home and there's not a passionate, fun embrace with their loved partner. It's like 2 ships passing in the night. And then,
with the phone. With
a phone in hand, And then, TV, there's so many distractions to give you that sort of escape, I suppose. And I think that bleeds on to our next thing, which is execution and undistracted focus, in that's been one of the key things for me, in that I heard about a New York CEO who basically said, I do not have an email app on my phone, got rid of it. I literally check emails at a part of the morning and part of the evening, and I will not get involved in them during the day. And what I then tried to adopt in my sort of weekly strategy is looking at my long-term goals, looking at the short-term goals, making sure that all the things important to me have some time allotted. And it's embarrassing to say, but I would lock in that diary, right? Phone off, bedtime stories with the kids. And ashamed to say, in a way, that because of work and calls and other things, I didn't do that anywhere nearly enough as what I should have done. And by locking in the key things, that was massive for me. But also the key thing was going, right, okay, between, say, 9 and 11, I would have the A time that you refer to, and that would be no emails, no TV, no music, no phone, no breaks. I'm literally going to blitz undistracted focus and concentration. And what I found was the amount that you can achieve in that 8-hour window, say 9 to 5, was absolutely enormous. Because in the past, what I was doing was every phone call wouldn't duck a call. Every email wouldn't duck an email. And then they mount up. Every person in Quadrant C who needed me help would never say no. Probably dead grumpy, by the way, in helping them, but would do it. And then you get home that night, and you can get home, and that's what we mean, mistake movement for achievement. I can get home and go, wow, in terms of goals, what have I actually done? And I think
I've done a lot of stuff in the day.
I've been really busy.
But I haven't actually achieved any goals.
100%.
And then we get home, and unfortunately, because we're wrung out, and I used to get this working away down in Newbury, coming back at the weekend, you'd come out, you'd be back at the weekend, wrung out like a wet dish rag. And the people that are most important to us in life don't get the best of us.
Yeah, everyone, yeah, that's the key thing. A lot of people treat strangers a hell of a lot better than you treat
Yeah.
actually your loved ones and the people that matter. That's probably one for another show. In the work life, no matter what role you've got in a business, it is, you could be working open plan with 2 screens in front of you, phones ringing, calls coming into you, emails popping up in the bottom right corner. Yeah. If you think about it in that context, and your mobile phone sort of secretly under the table, then you've got to fit in your lunch hour. Yeah. Then you've got the, it is difficult in those circumstances, but it is doable. And I think I would recommend highly to everyone that every single day, and if you're a business operator or business administrator, I would speak to the people at work to try and figure out a way where even in the daytime, you can divert the calls for 2 hours.
Of course you can.
Very cheaply to alternative providers. Yeah. And you can have an office where for 2-3 hours a day, at the least, everybody can be working with no distractions on exactly what they need. And you know what, you can free up other time in the day for them emails, them callbacks, etc., depending on what sector and business you're in, of course. Undistracted focus, George, how important is it, and what are your tips for a system with that, both in your personal life and business?
I think the undistracted focus is absolutely vital, and we've all had that totally undistracted focus. Even kids that are supposedly ADHD, I'm sorry, I don't agree that they've got attention deficit disorder, because when you look at them playing their video game or whatever it happens to be that they're engrossed in, their whole focus is on what they love doing. And you could be calling them for tea, Johnny, come for tea, Johnny, come for tea. And their focus is so intense. Now, if they can do that, we can do that. We need to get rid of those distractions. We need to allow ourselves the freedom to do that. And a really simple way, I suppose, is if you cast your mind back to when you've had that sort of focus yourself, totally focused on something. If you were, for example, at a football match, would it be fair to say that you're looking around going, oh, look at the birds, look at that? No, you're not.
Donald Trump, if I'm at Anfield, Donald Trump can press the red button, I'm paying no attention. A missile could come over Anfield,
Exactly. So, we know how to do this. This is something that we love doing, something that we enjoy. This is real focus. It's finding the way that you do that, the feeling that you get with that focus. It's the mindset you have focused on the match, focused on the ball, focused on the play, whatever it happens to be, and transferring that to what you need to focus it on. And there are ways of doing that. A little bit more complex to do it than here in front of the camera, but there's simple ways to do that, to bring that focus to where it needs to be in your work, or if it's in the evening, reading the kids a bedtime story, be there at the party. There's an old phrase, if you're going to be at the party, be at the party. This is what you're referring to when you see couples, sitting around, or in a restaurant, families, and they're all on the phone. Nobody's at the party. They're all elsewhere. If you're going to be at the party, be at the party.
That's exactly that. That really helped me. I would go, right, I'm locking in when the kids are in bed, or I've got some free time. Later on in the evening, I will have half an hour, 45 minutes catching up on football news or hobbies or whatever it be, or something that would be. But I'd lock in that. It sounds awful. I'd lock in that playtime with the kids and taking them out and turning that phone off. So if you can't get hold of me and George, and our phones are always off in the future, you now know a lot of the reasons why we're not just ignoring you. I think one of the biggest things, which I'd love some quick guidance on from you, is maintaining this plan, this strategy. Let's say people are listening to this and they're going, okay, whether it's working out more, whether it's a combination of that and eating healthy, whether it's putting in a great routine, where they're going, okay, I want a really passionate, loving relationship. That's my goal. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? How do I actually make that what I do? I always find what happens is when spring becomes summer, in a seasonal context, we all get complacent. And what happens is we all then take for granted whatever that habit or skill is, and then we potentially stop doing it. And then we forget that winter is always coming, and it might be problems in your career, it might be problems in your personal life. Winter comes for us all. We hate to say it, but all of us are going to suffer at some point in time bereavement. You're not going to work at the same place forever. Rules can change, businesses can fail, you can leave that job, hate it, but it's not always up to you whether you get divorced or not. There's another party that has a say in these kind of things. And like you said, your kids don't stay the same age forever. You know, whilst they crave you for a certain number of years, it flips around and you'll be craving their attention later down the line. How do you put in place these good habits, but how do you maintain them in the long term, year on year?
I think one of the most important ways to do that is actually accountability to yourself. Or maybe, if you need to, accountability to somebody else. So planning those goals on paper, having those targets that you want to meet. We know about SMART goals, you know, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and timed. There's a reason why they're called that, SMART goals, is because they're actually quite smart to have those goals in place. And the thing there is about them being timed. So we know that we've got to have achieved a certain thing by a certain time. Now, if we plan our year ahead, you know, I want to be this weight by then, we've got to take into account that it'll take a while to get there. So in the next couple of weeks or so, for example, if I want to lose a stone, and I probably could do with losing a stone, then I'm probably going to be 2 or 3 pounds lighter next week. It's not a massive amount, but it's on the way towards where I want to be. Somewhere along the line, I will reach my goal of being a stone lighter. Then I've got to keep in mind that achievement of that goal and keep that in place for the coming months, the coming years, to maintain that. And there's, you know, it's, I suppose, planning it out. It's writing these goals down. It's having a vision board. It's actually having things that fixed in the diary, locked in the diary, that will keep us on track, and that is really important.
Yeah, I used to have 2 issues with that, in that I would sometimes see Mount Everest, if you like, and go, well, I can't climb that, that's too far, too hard, too many little baby steps to do it. And the second thing was when that progress wasn't linear. So you'd have speed bumps, you'd have knockbacks, you'd have failures, you'd have that weekend blowout and put more weight on, as an example. You'd go away and have 2 weeks where you haven't gone to the gym, so if you go back, you probably can't do what you did do, these kind of things. I heard a fantastic story about Will Smith, where his father knocked down this wall and said to Will Smith and his brother, "You're building a wall, and I'm going to inspect every brick." And he didn't need this wall, it was completely pointless. It took them over a year, and they literally did it brick by brick every night. And in the end, they had this incredible wall. And that was really the metaphor that he was looking for. And that really struck a chord with me. And I think the main thing for people, I think, to whatever habits you're trying to get into in work or in your personal life, one, the worst bit of it's probably going to be the start. So accept that. Secondly, accept that it's brick by brick. And I think the key thing is never underestimate how positive an impact progress has on you. So if you have got to climb Mount Everest, I haven't. But imagine if you interview people who've got 10% of the way up, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. If you're saying someone might have to lose a stone, I'd imagine once they've lost 2 pounds, they feel brilliant. The issue is, you've got to expect and anticipate the knockbacks, where you might lose a couple of pounds or whatever. As I say, things aren't always linear. And the data out there says that a good habit can take, 66 days to 254 before it becomes a proper habit, I would say.
I would say, actually, you know, you can put a really good habit in much quicker by rehearsing it in your mind. And doing it again and again and again. And there's a little anecdote, actually. Richard Bandler, who's creator of NLP, his son got, I think it was poison ivy or poison oak, brushed against this plant when they were on holiday. And you come out in a nasty rash. It's really quite unpleasant. And they went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's going to take 2 weeks. You're just going to have to live with it for 2 weeks." Now, Richard's attitude to this is basically he has a healthy disrespect for doctors and some of the nonsense that they say. I'm not saying they all say nonsense, but some of them. And he said to his son, okay, brought him home and said, okay, what are we going to do over the next 2 weeks? Plan it out in detail, the next week, the next day, the next hours, you know. And he got him to do that again and again and again over a period of about an hour, to think about all the things that were going to be happening in the next 2 weeks. So that actually it didn't last 2 weeks. It didn't have to have that problem for 2 weeks. I think it was about 3 or 4 days when it had completely gone. because he got him into the habit where he could convince his unconscious mind, for want of a better term, that it was getting better and that it had actually dealt with all of this poison oak. And the same thing happens with those targets that we set ourselves. If we practice them again and again and again in our mind, it's basically meditation. We know the little story about Gandhi, who sort of turned around and said, "I've got a really, really busy day today. I'm going to have to meditate twice as long." And if you want something doing, you need to take a little bit of time out for yourself to recharge the batteries, to clear the mind, to download everything, and start again with more focus. Again, there's a story of Emperor Hirohito in Japan, who had every single moment of his day planned, every single 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, it was just planned throughout the day. And one particular day he was brought to a fantastic temple where he was going to meet the monks who ran the temple. And when his delegation arrived, there was no monk to be seen. No one was there. And so Emperor Hirohito just stood there in this beautiful temple, admiring the temple. All of his aides were panicking, running around like headless chickens trying to find these monks. At the end of the 10 minutes, when they had to move on, they still hadn't found these monks. And one of his aides comes up and says, "Look, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to go to our next appointment," kind of thing. Emperor Hirohito turns to him and says, "I very much enjoyed this visit. Please schedule me another one tomorrow." Which I think is brilliant.
Well, I think to add to that,
yeah,
there are ways of doing a lot of meditation thought process whilst doing other things. It could be the commute to work. It could be just before you go to bed.
Absolutely.
It could be whilst you're in the shower. So it's not taking up additional time. And I think the other thing is, if your goal's focused and they're the things that you want in your life, do you know what? You're not going to get them all.
Yeah.
Necessarily. And you're not always going to have them all of the time.
Yeah.
Potentially. But even if you only get 20 to 40% of the things done during that week, you've contributed. Say you want to go to the gym 6 times and you've locked that in, but you go 3.
Yeah.
It's not a failure. You've probably gone more times than if you'd have just been acting on automatic pilot.
Absolutely.
And hadn't looked at your goals, your strategies, and put in place some kind of plan. So don't be upset if you can't stick to these religiously, because it's like, I think you told me the story about Al Gore when he's like, "Look, I can't fit anything in, my diary's full, son's in a road crash." All of a sudden that diary goes right out of the window.
Absolutely.
And sometimes life takes over. So thank you so much, George.
Yeah.
I mean,
if I can just add one little point here, and that is, it's great to have all these goals, etc., and plans, etc. Also, cut yourself a little bit of slack. Because if you find at the end of the week you haven't achieved everything, it doesn't matter. There's still next week. The important thing is that you spend your time with the people that you want to spend time with, and you're not just working for the life insurance.
Indeed, and thank you so much, George. Thank you for listening. Remember to share on social media the MLC show and the podcast. Check out the businessservicesclub.co.uk. It's free to access, and if you're interested in receiving any business coaching or personal support, please get in touch with us. We offer a whole range of other services to support you and your business. Stay well, everybody. Take care, and see you next week. The Business Services Club is a unique business-to-business brokerage. When you need a service for your business, or you want to compare your existing business, get in touch for free and no obligation quotes. We have created a specialist panel of commercial partners to support your every business need. We will provide you with free and no obligation quotes via the free to access Business Services Club. As an example, you may need EL, PL or professional indemnity insurance quotes, forensic accountants, self-employed bookkeeping, funding, working capital, interest-only lending with no personal guarantees, employment and HR support, web development, training, legal advice, or even online marketing. No matter what you and your business require, we will meet your needs. Free up precious time researching and analysing new or existing outsourced partners via our one-stop business solution. See how we can help you and your business via businessservicesclub.co.uk.